How many 80-year-olds with Parkinson's do you still see driving around?
So really, the burden falls squarely on my shoulders to help them day to day with whatever they need. You never know what it's going to be when that phone rings in the middle of the day and it's my mom or my uncle. The thought that goes through your mind, hope for the best, but expect the worst.
There was a very hard moment with the family with your uncle with his Parkinson's and being a neurological condition that he was ultimately reported to the state to essentially lose his license. So
Yeah, he was never in an accident. He for all practical purposes, he was a very good driver, but the disease took that away from him. That's the number one thing that people think when faced with that situation, that someone else is going to bear the burden.
Right.
Oh, someone else will do it. My other sibling will do it. And you're lucky you have other siblings that you can help, spread it out over and rely on. I don't have that. In one hand, I have some honest diapers. The other hand, I have Depends, and I'm buying diapers for the young and for the elderly.
Some statistics say about 70% of people over 65 are going to need some level of care.
If I knew then what I know now, I definitely would have been more proactive as opposed to reactive.
This is the Midlife Squeeze. I'm Erica Smith, a certified financial planner with Ocean Crest Wealth Management. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and shouldn't be considered personalized financial advice. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the show. Welcome, Peter, my wonderful husband. Thank you for being the first guest on the Midlife Squeeze. So I want to take a minute and just kind of tell us how your caregiving journey started.
Sure. So first, I just want to say I'm honored and thrilled to be here, to be your first guest on the Midlife Squeeze. So my caregiving journey started probably back in 2007. So my father was ill. He passed away. My mother was recovering from surgery herself. So that was my first glimpse into caretaking. I had a full-time job. I was actually granted some family medical leave so I could check on my mother in the morning and in the evening because she, like I said, was recovering from about a month in the hospital. So it was a very demanding and a very difficult time. And I was 25, 26 years old. So it was one of those situations that I was thrown into, not necessarily expecting it, but having to deal with it. And fast forward to today, we have my mom and my uncle, both approximately 80 years old. And my uncle has Parkinson's. My mom has multiple sclerosis, MS. And I also am married with 2 young children. So having to juggle a full-time job, helping take care of my mom and uncle, and also 2 little ones. So it's quite demanding and a lot of different hats that you wear while juggling different roles.
Right. So, your caregiving story started, about 20 years ago, and your father's been passed now approximately about 19?
Yeah, this will be 19 years.
19 years. So, that is so young. And I think that's going to become even more normal. More people at a younger age may have to start seeing these things. 20s is significantly early, but, even 30s, obviously 40s. So what does a normal caregiving day look like for you on a day-to-day basis? Or is there anything that you do on a weekly basis for your mom and your uncle?
So, well, first of all, aging and unfortunately death is one of those things that we all know is going to happen. But when it does happen, you're still not quite prepared for it. So on a day-to-day basis, like I said, I have 2 young children. So I, of course, have to help care for them. I have a full-time job. And my mom and my uncle, who luckily they do live right around the corner from us now, which we'll get into shortly. But it could be literally anything with them, from their internet going out to their AC not working. So I am the handyman, the plumber, the electrician, technical support, and many other things. Sometimes I'm just their Uber driver to get them to where they need to be. I also have to order groceries for them. So now that I have a family, I can't do their grocery shopping any longer. So we use a grocery service to order and deliver groceries online. So day to day, it is quite demanding. You never know what it's going to be when that phone rings in the middle of the day and it's my mom or my uncle. The thought that goes through your mind, hope for the best, but expect the worst. And 9 out of 10 times, it's nothing serious. But sometimes it could be my mom's ill, my mom fell, my uncle fell, and it's going to require a trip to the hospital or a visit to the ER. So you never really know what it's going to be day in and day out. But you do know that your role as caretaker, as a father, as a husband, as a small business owner is to check all the boxes each day and just do the best that you can.
So you've always handled a lot. Is there anything that maybe feels like a burden to you? Mainly, now that you do have children and a wife and a life of your own, and not having anybody else to rely on, as essentially, you are an only child to your mom, and, your uncle who lives with your mom, he doesn't have any children and he's not married. So you are also the primary caretaker for him too. How do you kind of juggle all of that? And have you ever felt there's a burden and you have nowhere to go for help?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a stress. It's a big weight on my shoulders. My uncle is my godfather. He has no children. He's not married. So he is like a second father to me. Again, we are very blessed that they live in town right around the corner from us. About 5 years ago, we had my mother downsize her house and move closer to us into a smaller unit. It was just too much house for them, and the distance was too much. So really, the burden falls squarely on my shoulders to help them day to day with whatever they need. Some days it's something, some days it is nothing, but there's just a juggle back and forth. But I definitely feel the pressure. There's always pressure to get the work that I need to do professionally, then get the groceries perhaps that they need ordered, or maybe unexpected trip to the doctor that they need help with, or I have to leave work early. So there's always going to be that burden, and it is stressful just not knowing what's going to happen next. But again, just being the best prepared that you can be.
And I think your experience in starting at such a young age has given you somewhat of an advantage into balancing it all, because you have to balance work, your mom and uncle, and now your wife and your two children. So is there any tips that you would have for some listeners on, basically how to pick your battles, maybe not feel the guilt?
So, I mean, starting at a young age, 25, 26 years old, it was definitely a reality check for me. I think it helped mature me and set my priorities straight, help align what's most important in my life. But my advice, I think, would be that you can do it if you are prepared. You have to know what is urgent, what needs to be done, and also understand that you're not the exception to the rule. Aging affects everyone. Everyone's parents are going to get older. And more often than not, people find themselves in these situations. By the time you're already in the situation, you're already one step behind. So I think you have to be prepared. You have to know what might happen and how you're going to handle it if it does happen.
And I know that when we decided as a family to downsize your mom's house, that was, not only was it a financial situation, but it was also a logistic by getting her closer to us. And it was extremely emotional because that home had been here in Florida for how many years in your family?
So my mom and my dad, when we moved to Florida in 1992, they built that house. So I was 11 years old. I pretty much grew up in that house. So we had a lot of memories in that house, and especially all the memories of my father. So it was tough to say goodbye to, but one door closes, another door opens. And having my mom and my uncle closer to us was truly a blessing. Everything, I mean, the stars essentially aligned, and we were able to have a smooth transition from a house to a townhouse and much closer to us. So instead of being 20, 30 minutes away, they are 5 minutes away. It's amazing. And it allows me to juggle responsibilities. So, perhaps put the kids to sleep, and then I run to my mom's house to fix her AC thermostat, or to reset the router, or to figure out why her tablet's not working or charging. So it could be any one of those things, but it allows me to do it quickly and efficiently.
I want to go back to something you said to me once, right in the middle of all of this. Do you remember what you said to me? And I think we had a little chuckle about it.
So I realized one day that and this is after I became a father, that my life has come full circle. So when you're at the grocery store buying diapers for an infant, a toddler, but then also Depends for adults, men and women, because they do come in men and women's, because I believe they're different colors. Not that anyone would want to choose their diaper color, but that was when I realized everything came full circle. So in one hand, I have some Honest diapers. The other hand, I have Depends, and I'm buying diapers for the young and for the elderly. And it was quite a laugh, but you just have to own it in the grocery store. You're buying diapers for everyone, and it's, you just you just do it.
Yeah, that one stuck with me. And I think that's part of this whole caregiving situation that people don't really see until they're in it. And, buying diapers for 4 people, I mean, at the same time is just, it's mind boggling.
Yeah, it's 2 different sections in the grocery store. The adult diapers are not with the baby diapers. So you have to get one, put them in the cart, and then go to the complete opposite side of the grocery store. So it is a journey.
So what other things have changed, besides moving your mom and your uncle closer to us? That was one of the things that we've done.
Yeah. So just the goal was to help them downsize. So they also needed a new car. So their lease was up on their previous vehicle. I think Erica had referenced that vehicle earlier in the podcast. But the lease was up, so we had to get them a new vehicle. So I helped take them to a few dealerships to find a car, similar car, small SUV. I think one day of car shopping with my mom and my uncle is probably my limit. So we luckily we found a car that day. Most of the negotiating, I told both of them, don't say a word, allow me to talk to them. And the funny story is my uncle did blurt out that they had to turn their lease in and they didn't have a car. So at that point, I lost all leverage, but we still got a good deal. So we downsized the house, we got the new car, and we just helped set them up for success. Automate all their bills, for example. Auto pay, that's not something they were used to. Old school, they like to write a check and mail it in. So I helped them automate everything, made sure they were all set with their technology in their new home, just to make their life as easy as possible or as stress-free as possible.
And maybe a difficult situation for our family, prior to them downsizing to one car, they both had a car, they both had vehicles, they were both driving. And then, we said, hey, why don't you guys trade in both cars? And, they really don't drive much.
No, it's all local.
So we're like, hey, let's just get one car, right? So we got one car. And then there was a very hard moment with the family with your uncle, with his Parkinson's and being a neurological condition, that he was ultimately reported to the state to essentially lose his license. So
yeah, the neurologist has a duty to evaluate their patients, and ultimately he gave the recommendation to the state that he shouldn't have a license or that he needs to requalify. So at that point, my uncle didn't have a license any longer, and it was tough. I mean, that was his outlet. He liked to go for joyrides, and I'll say he was never in an accident. He for all practical purposes, he was a very good driver, but the disease took that away from him. But that was his outlet. He used to like to run to Starbucks just to get some coffees, or do a little grocery shopping, or maybe even take me to the airport if I needed a ride to the airport. So the stress on the family, as with my uncle being the primary driver, because that's what he did to help. He felt he wanted to pitch in, and driving was helping. So that left the sole driving responsibilities on my mom, and she's a very local driver. She doesn't drive on the highway any longer. So and she doesn't like just going on joyrides. So that led to my uncle being home more and having to arrange transportation, maybe for some doctor's appointments through his insurance. So it's definitely a burden on everyone just having one driver and one car because, well, for instance, groceries. So just having them going shopping as much as my uncle would like was just not going to happen. And now fast forward to today, they don't really do any grocery shopping. Like I said, it's all ordered online and delivered. So I think the extent of their driving is just doctor's appointments, maybe coming to our house, or getting gas.
Yeah, I would say it's smaller than a 5-mile radius that they probably drive, or your mom at this point is the one that drives.
Oh, correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I mean, it's a very tight circle.
Yeah, they really don't leave town.
Yeah.
So
And it was hard. I know how hard and difficult it was for you to see your uncle, he was your cool uncle, and how we were going to face taking away that independence that he had. And on one hand, it was nice that it wasn't a family decision, right?
I'm glad I didn't have to have that conversation, because that's something that was hanging over my head, and I didn't want to have that conversation. I always thought maybe one day I would have to, but didn't end up that way. But I was there to support him. I'll take him occasionally down to the casino or out to lunch. So we still get to have a little bit of fun and do some joyriding. Just, we have to do it together, which is fine with me.
Right. Well, and you said a funny line, how many 80-year-olds with Parkinson's do you still see driving around? Because your uncle's had Parkinson's now for...
Yeah, over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
Probably 25, pushing 25 years, maybe more. So I always tell everyone I wish they knew him 20, 30 years ago. He was very social guy, life of the party. He was a restaurant owner, so everyone knew him, and we had a lot of great times. He taught me how to play tennis, basketball, table tennis. I think the first time I ever went to a gym and worked out was with him. So there was a lot of firsts. But I'm very blessed that here my mom and my uncle are 80 years old approximately, and they're still here in my life, in my children's life, in our life. So it's a tremendous blessing. And I like to think I have a small part in that, in their success of them, being here, and my ability to help them over the years and to just be there for them.
So in terms of like a financial impact, is there a way for you to maybe give some, not specific numbers, but just give people an idea of the financial impact of having to be a caregiver that is someone part of the sandwich generation, meaning that they are caring for younger children and also caring for aging parents at the same time? Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint that, but are there some examples of maybe some financial impacts that, we've had as a family or you have had personally?
Sure. So just lost work. Again, we're very fortunate to be small business owners, and I have a little more flexibility in my job these days than I've had in the past in the corporate world, but just lost days at the office. So, or if I have to spend a day taking my mother to an MRI in West Palm Beach and waiting for her, or that drive to Miami with Uncle, I've done that drive too. You have to take a whole day off of work. So there's definitely the lost time at the office, at work. Again, we have that flexibility, but not everyone does, and it definitely hits every family differently.
I know recently your mom had a little bit of an injury within the past year where she wasn't driving for several weeks at a time. So we lost Uncle driving. He lost his license because he had Parkinson's, and then your mom had an injury that prevented her from driving.
Yeah. So then I really had to take her to every doctor's appointment.
Right.
Pick her up from the hospital, take her to every doctor's appointment, and check in more. So there's, one of my dad's sayings was time is money, meaning time is valuable. You can't put a price tag on it. So the lost time you have, maybe with my kids that I'm spending with my mom because I have to help her, or the lost time at work, there's always a trickle down effect. But, we do the best we can as a family. I'm spread thin many times, but I'm able to balance it. And you just have to, again, like my dad would always say, he had always had these wayward sayings, but he would always tell you to be sensible. And that was just a way of empowering you to make the right decision and to do what's best. And I think that's really all you have to do. You just have to do your best. That's all you can do, and everything will fall into place.
Yeah, that like recent injury, with the multiple doctor's appointments, therapy, checkups, blood work, prescription runs. We were spread thin between the two of us and the kids.
Between work, childcare, the kids.
So
something simple as what are we going to do for dinner? Which is, I think any married couple with kids is always a question in the household. But yeah, it's like it's just the little things sometimes become bigger things when you're squeezed for time and you're spread thin.
Right. if we're not able to cover it, I know recently we were spread so thin that we did look into and we did hire an aide. Do you remember about how much that aide cost?
So, well, I mean, I think it was an aid just for transportation.
Okay.
So, and that was just so my
Wasn't a
mom could.
nurse, right? It was just like a health aide.
Yeah, not a nurse. So maybe a nurse's assistant, I'm not sure. But just to get my mom to the doctor, which was literally around the corner, I couldn't do it that day. Erica couldn't do it. I mean, I think it was $75 for like a 3-hour minimum. And my mom probably didn't need 3 hours considering it was right around the corner, less than 10 minutes away.
Right.
But that's the burden when there is literally no one else to give you a ride. Something simple, just a ride around the corner. We had to hire someone. And again, very fortunate. It all worked out great, but it's not something you can really financially do with the amount of doctor's appointments that an elderly person is going to have. I mean, even one a week, $75 a week, that's $300 a month. I mean, it's not realistic. So.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, I remember you sometimes getting frustrated because your mom for 82 years old looks fantastic. And
she doesn't look her age. So I think a lot of people don't understand that. Yeah, she looks much younger and great on the outside, but on the inside she is 82. So things, don't move as fast as they used to. They don't heal as fast as they used to, and she's more susceptible to little things, little injuries and little bugs and stuff like that. So they look at her and they think she can move mountains, but really she's 82 years old this year. So and when you look at your parents, you always look at them as an 82-year-old. I look at her as my mom, and she's always been my mom, but now she's 82, and you look at someone else who's 82 and you think, my gosh, they're getting up there. They're pretty old. But when I look at my mom, I don't see that. And sometimes I have to give her the benefit of the doubt to realize that she is that age and she does need this help. And it's just something that once in a while clicks in my mind that she is 82 and she's not going to all of a sudden run a marathon.
Right.
Or you can't teach an old dog new tricks. She's not going to, no matter how many times I tell her how to reset the router, she's not going to be able to do it.
So how do you think this has affected us as a family, like as a couple? Do you think it changed the way maybe we looked at having children, the amount of children we had?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to meet you, get engaged and get married and have a family. We have 2 beautiful girls. But yeah, after our first child, there definitely was some thought, do we want to have another child? We have my mother and my uncle, which are kind of like 2 big kids that we take care of sometimes or help take care of. But that was a big discussion between you and I, and we did really ponder the thought of having a second child and balancing the caretaking.
Right.
But I think, we did make the right choice. We can do it. And I think we have a great life. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like times where I was like, a third, like they're just so amazing, but I don't think a third is in the works for us. And I think even your niece said something funny.
Yeah. So she said something to the effect of, oh, I didn't think you were going to have a second child because you have your mom. I was like, oh, well, thanks for pointing that out. But again, a family of 4, I think, is a great number. Right. So we're very blessed.
And so why Peter's story sometimes hits so hard is we are fortunate that his mom still has limited driving capabilities. She still can do a few things here or there. So I think Peter gets frustrated with some of his friends where they're like, well, your mom looks great and she's still driving, but just something as simple as not being able to drive for 6 to 8 weeks. And when we were spread so thin, that impact, it rippled through the whole family. It rippled into work, maybe not being able to do as many client meetings. We were having to hand off leads because we were just not able to do them ourselves. And that's kind of, I'm in my late 30s, you're in your mid 40s. And I still think we're relatively young to be dealing with this. And the reality though is people are having children later. And that just means our parents are older at the same time. But it's almost like the opposite for your best friend, right? He had children at a very young age, so his parents were young. Yeah.
A lot of my friends, it's hard for them to relate because their parents are much younger. Their parents still help them out quite a bit. The idea of going on a trip with my parents and with my mom and having her, help watch my children, that never happened. Many of my friends' parents still, quote unquote, take care of them, cook for them, help them with childcare, this and that. I haven't had that for a long time. My parents haven't done anything that, really take care of me for over 20 years. So it's, I guess, just a different world that I'm in compared to them. And it's just hard for people to relate until you're actually in that situation. But, one of my good friends, my best friend, I asked him recently, well, what would you do if tomorrow your mom needed care? She couldn't drive, couldn't get, to the doctor, to the grocery store, to do all the essential things she needed to do. And he thought about it for a quick second, and he was like, I'd probably have my brother handle it because he's younger and he doesn't have the same job responsibilities that I do. And I'm like, well, bingo, that's the number one thing that people think when faced with that situation, that someone else is going to bear the burden.
Right.
Oh, someone else will do it. My other sibling will do it. And you're lucky you have other siblings that you can help spread it out over and rely on. I don't have that. So when I'm in that situation, I know I have to handle whatever I have to handle.
And that's what, something I continuously see, all the time with clients, friends, is that nobody really sits down to talk about this. And I think there is some difficulty because we all know we're going to die, right? We know what death is. We don't like to think about it maybe, but we know there will be a time for that to come. What we don't know is that, are your parents going to have some sort of cognitive or physical decline where they're going to need care? And some statistics say about 70% of people over 65 are going to need some level of care. And that's why I just think it's so important, for people to hear these stories, to kind of hear your story about how you were thrust at such a young age and how we're dealing with this now with our very young family. We have a 1-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and we are, the primary caretakers. And I think that, we've done the best we can, but we did it almost as we were in the middle of it. So was there anything that you wish we would have done sooner? Hindsight's always 20/20,
Yeah.
so it's easy to say now. But for our listeners, was there anything maybe that you wish we would have done sooner?
Yeah, well, in hindsight, or playing that Monday morning quarterback, I mean, we did a great job. We had my mom prior to selling the house. She got. Well, my dad did have a will and all that in order, but we had my mom update her will, get a trust, and take care of everything in that regard. But I think just looking back, you wish you'd always done more. Maybe get more involved with the finances, my mother's finances, or what her budget was each month. Just kind of understanding where the money's going, what's coming in, where is it going. And I mean, if I knew then what I know now, I definitely would have been more proactive as opposed to reactive.
I think Peter's story is such a real picture of what this stage of life can look like. Not just one moment, but years of responsibility, decisions, and things that don't always get talked about. And I think the biggest takeaway is this: even when it looks like one person is handling most of the caregiving, it affects the entire family, emotionally, logistically, and financially. And if you're hearing pieces of your own life in this, that's exactly why these conversations matter. Not when everything's already happening, but earlier. If this conversation brought up questions for you, that's the point. A lot of families don't really get the chance to slow down and think things through until they're already in them. And it can feel overwhelming when it all happens at once. There's a simple family money plan quiz linked in the show notes that walks through some of the areas that tend to come up, from caregiving logistics to planning conversations that are easy to put off. It's not personal advice, but it's a great starting point. So thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.